Hi everyone, my name is Kelsey, and my paper was on tax evasion. There's been a lot of speculation that America is broke, that we have no money, we're in debt, and that we're on this constant downward spiral financially. The truth in this is that Washington has been making a lot of budget cuts. There's been a lot of layoffs in the court system, on police forces, and in schools with teachers. Chuck Collins, however, is a senior scholar for the Institute for Policy Studies and has suggested we're a wealthy country, we're not broke. The money is there, we're just not looking in the right places. But this begs the question, where do we look? Large corporations have been under the microscope, especially since the 2016 presidential election where Donald Trump's tax returns were released and showed that he paid zero federal income taxes. He's not the only businessman who's been doing this, though. Other companies such as GE, Bank of America, and Chevron have been making anywhere from $4.4 to $26 billion and paid zero federal income taxes. Since 1951, the total percentage of U.S. federal income tax collected from corporations has been cut in half. This impacts us greatly. With one sector of the economy paying less, our government is then forced to run larger deficits or ask others, such as you and I, to pay more. How do they get away with this, though? The documentary on Netflix called We're Not Broke does an excellent job of explaining some of the loopholes these corporations have found to evade their taxes. The clip that I'm going to share will give you a general sense of these loopholes that they've found.
Multinationals will use a tax haven as a way station. That is not a place where they put money like people do. They pass money through there so it doesn't get taxed in the place that they earn the money.
The money only passes through in a sort of digital and political sense, but the money itself is onshore.
It's in a bank in the United States, but it's booked in these places.
They just use the international tax rules to shift profits out of the United States and other high tax countries into low tax countries. And that's called transfer pricing.
The whole game in transfer pricing is to allocate as much income as possible to a low tax country or a tax haven, and as much expenses as possible to a high tax country like the US. The problem is that you have companies that are allocating for tax purposes the bulk of their profits to parts of the world where in some cases they have no employees, they have no sales, they have no real economic activity of any kind.
Under U.S. tax laws, there's nothing illegal about what they're doing. But by any reasonable standard, when most of your business is in the United States and most of the intellectual know-how, research, and productivity is in the United States, the profits that are taxed should also be in the United States.
One of the
Okay. So how does this affect us? Well, Robert Reich, who was in the documentary Inequality for All that we watched earlier this semester, introduced us to the idea of a vicious cycle. In this vicious cycle, we learn that when tax revenues decrease, the government cuts programs. This cut in programs ultimately leads to a less educated workforce, which causes our unemployment rate to rise. With this unemployment rising, the wages then stagnate and workers can't afford to buy an excess amount of goods. This lack of productivity causes companies to have to downsize, which leads once again to the tax revenues decreasing. And it's this constant cyclical idea that has caused America to downward spiral the way it has. For the ecological level of analysis, I decided to split this into two parts, the affect and the effect. On the affect side, we have macro systems, which is ultimately where this faulty tax code within legislation stems from. And then we also have organizations, which are these large corporations such as GE, Bank of America, and Citigroup, who are evading their taxes and causing this huge imbalance in our economy. On the effect side, we have microsystems, more specifically, families and classrooms. Families who are impacted by the lack of jobs, and also families whose kids no longer have after-school programs to attend due to government cutting spending. Classrooms are being impacted by teacher layoffs, in the sense that more and more students are being compiled into the same classroom, creating environments that are overcrowded and distracting. In this category, we also have localities. These are geographic locations such as cities, towns, and rural areas who are slowly deteriorating as time progresses. When government lacks money, these areas no longer have the funds to patch up roads or buildings or even paint over graffiti. Lastly, we have the individual, or people like you and me, who are immediately impacted with a rise in our taxes. As I mentioned earlier, with one sector of the economy paying less, the government is forced to either run a larger deficit or ask people like you and I to pay more. One solution that was offered in the documentary on Netflix was a revenue-neutral corporate tax reform. And this gave us the idea that U.S. multinationals, which are those companies who do banking offshores, would be asked to pay more, while domestic production, places like mom and pop shops or small businesses, would be burdened by lower corporate tax rates. The whole idea behind this is that if U.S. multinationals bring their business back to strictly America in order for them to obtain the lower corporate rate, then more jobs and a better balanced economy would soon be in effect. More jobs because the U.S. multinationals or large corporations would be expanding their business solely in America and would need more people to help do this, and a better balanced economy in the sense that with these companies actually paying their taxes because they have to stay in America, the whole imbalance of them evading their taxes will be eliminated, and the whole vicious cycle that we once went through would turn into more of a prosperous cycle.